Hello, 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 the mask is back, and I believe this is truly one of the most underrated cards that we've gotten in recent memory. People are saying like, oh, it's just kind of whatever, it's bottom heavy, I heard from MMHA in his recent live stream, and I even heard from like other fight fans, like YouTubers, mainly YouTubers, that it's just kind of whatever. They're just kind of putting together a fight card for the end of the year that's a pay-per-view that is just enough to get through the year. That's just enough to be considered a pay-per-view. And it's like some people are even saying it's a fight night in quality, and I'm just like, what are you watching? It's like literally the whole prelims can make one of the greatest fight nights, honestly. Because even though the actual fighters aren't the most like high level these days, they're actually really good put together fights which could have potential to go to wars, a lot of these guys. And they're also yeah, I feel like they're also very competitive, well-rounded fights, which could also end in a finish. If you have both on the sort of table, where it could be a war and it could also end in a finish, like those are the best kind of fights to have. And on top of that, you also have a full card, a full main card of male MMA fighters, I might add, which are, the female MMA fighters are just kind of not that interesting, let's be honest. You have a full male roster of ranked fighters, aside from Payne Talbot, who might as well, if he's going to be getting Henry Cejudo, he might as well be number 15, even though Ronnie Barcelos beat him. But either way, you have a full roster of, like, literally only a female fight is Macy Barber versus Karine Silva, which is actually an alright WMMA fight. So otherwise, I mean, it's like I don't know what people are talking about when they say this card isn't that actually stacked. I think this is a great card. Excuse me, and let's just jump into it. I'm gonna say this is like a 9 out of 10 purely because of all the competitive fights that there is potential to have here. And Mayron Santos versus Muhammad Naimov. I'm going with Mayron Santos. Now, I do understand the underdog pick of picking Muhammad Naimov, and so a lot of people are surprised by the odds here. I personally am not because I really was impressed with Santos's striking against the Sadiq Youssef, who, granted, isn't actually the biggest or strongest guy in the division, which Muhammad Naimov is a fairly strong guy for the weight class, and he's going to use his wrestling more closely to the closer fight that Mayron Santos had against Francis Marshall. But on the other hand, Sadiq Yusuf is a much more technical striker who also is very, I would say he's very quick, and he, granted, relies on one shots, but so does Mohamed Naimov, to be honest. He kind of just throws out the jab, and sometimes he'll throw out overhands. He's not the most technical. He doesn't really mix in a lot of shots together. He doesn't really mix in a lot of punches. He does have a bit of that Chad Mendes wrestle boxing style, but not like a combination boxing sort of style where sometimes he'll throw a right hook to a left hook type of thing, but that's the extent of his combos usually, unless he hurts his opponent. And so I do think that Santos will be able to stuff most of the takedowns and just do barely enough on the feet, where Muhammad Naimov's not going to really be able to catch him with anything significant or meaningful. Possibly one overhand can rock Marin Santos in one section of the fight, but for the most part, I think Marin Santos will do enough over the course of 3 rounds, possibly a 29-28. And Mansour Abdul Malik versus Antonio Trucoli. Yeah, I mean, Antonio Trucoli, he has height and reach, and that's basically it. Otherwise, he is a human punching bag, and I do think that Mansour Abdul Malik, although sometimes he is a little too patient for his own good, he's usually quite a fast starter in the first round, and so I do believe that he's going to let his hands go enough, especially knowing that this is Antonio Tricoli, who's basically lost his last two fights by KO. I'm pretty sure his last one was as well. No, Trajan Gore actually kind of went a little bit further than. No, no, actually, neither was first round KO because Sharon Magomedov went to like third round, I believe. Maybe it was second, but I'm pretty sure it was third round. Yeah, I actually do think it's possible that Antonio could make it past round one, but I just don't trust his chin. I don't trust his defense. His defense sucks. And he doesn't use his reach to his advantage. He doesn't really pump out any sort of feints. He doesn't use the jab very meaningfully. He has all these attributes, but he doesn't meaningfully use them. So I just feel like he's going to be a sitting target there, especially against a striker like Mansour Abdul Malik. Etan Barboza, and a really good striker at that. He mixes in kicks with punches really well. He's kind of a kickboxer in that regard, although he mainly relies on the boxing to then set up the kicks. And then we have Jalen Turner versus Etan Barboza. Yeah, this is kind of the UFC not really. Um, I like this matchup for Jalen Turner. This is the UFC not really giving some kind of a fair matchup to Edson, which, I mean, to be fair, Edson has stuck around way longer than he should, so that's kind of on him as well. But the UFC should not be giving him this matchup, and I do like this matchup for Jalen Turner on the other hand, and I'm rooting for him because he seems like a really cool guy. And one time in the weigh-ins, I did see him, bring the Catholic rosary to the last weigh-in we seen him. So it was against Ignacio, I remember. So yeah, I mean, just based on that, I got to root for him here. And it's not just that why I'm picking him, of course not, but he does have just the lethal 1-2 down the pipe, which he landed beautifully against what's the kid's name? Bobby Green, or what's the kid's name? Bobby Green. He has the all the attributes, even though it's only half an inch reach advantage. He has the huge reach advantage in the height. So even though he only has a minuscule reach advantage, the height advantage is certainly going to play a factor. And Edson Barboza, he has the kicks, but I don't think unless he lands a picture perfect head kick, spinning head kick, like a wheel kick, I don't see otherwise how he's able to win this fight. Like he'd have to that one where Joe Rogan says, where he shouts, "Do you want to risk getting knocked out? If you want to actually um, win this, Edson Barboza, that's the only way you're gonna do it. If you KO Jalen Turner the same way you KO'd that one guy where Joe Rogan said that, because otherwise." And Jalen Turner does not walk at you like that. He's not flat-footed like that. Where that opponent was like a decade ago that Edson was able to win that fight with the spinning head kick or wheel kick, whatever. You're not going to be able to hit that on Jalen Turner. He's not as stationary, although against Hooker when he was gassing, he kind of was against Dan Hooker. And but this is Edson Barboza who gasses even more so. And if you're getting boxed up by a let's be honest, kind of trash Jakar Close. I don't think he's that good. You're not gonna win against Jalen Turner, especially with his attributes here. It's just gonna be hard for him to get inside with the kicks, and his boxing is not that good. It's another thing where he relies on his kicks. It's actually the opposite of Mansour Abdul Malik, where he relies on his kicks to actually get his boxing going, and he needs the opponent to be about the same size as him to actually get his boxing going as well. Or like that guy that Joe Rogan shouted, knocked out. It's only guys that are that trash who actually he's able to utilize his boxing against. If you're not going to utilize your reach like Jalen Turner does, then you're going to get knocked out like that. Absolutely. But it's just I can't trust Edson Barboza against such a lethal striker like Jalen Turner, who even utilizes his elbows really nasty. Elbows he landed against Dan Hooker, which cut him up, made his hair into Kool-Aid. So yeah, I'd have to like red Kool-Aid. I'd have to give it like a first round KO. I think he's gonna hit him with maybe a cross down the pipe. Marvin Vittori, Bruno Ferreira. I'm gonna go with the Italian Dream. I think he's just more quick. I think that he lands with much more volume, and I think that Bruno Ferreira he just has the overhand and the spinning elbow. I think that that's something that people aren't really bringing into this fight, but he was just spamming that against Dustin Stoltzfus, and yeah, I think that the reach is going to play a factor here. Marvin Vettori is much more quick than a lot of the opponents that Bruno Ferreira has fought lately. His best win is Gregory Rodriguez, and even Gregory was not really let's be honest, he's not a fast guy. He's more of a powerhouse who has kind of sus defense at times. He's kind of technical these days, but back then he was kind of just going at Bruno Ferreira kind of recklessly. Marvin Vettori, he doesn't really have to worry about that because he's never been knocked out really. I don't think ever, and I think it's gonna stay that way. He just has that undeniable chin that will just refuse to get KO'd. He's like the biggest blockhead in the UFC. He just refuses to get KO'd, and I think that Bruno Ferreira, he's gonna land some nasty overhands in the first round and might even drop him with like a spinning elbow. But Marvin Vettori is gonna come back in rounds one. I mean, 2 and 3. I think he's gonna hit him with that jab a bunch, and even the lead hook. He's got a really good lead hook. I shouldn't say really good. Nothing he does is really good, but he has a good lead hook. And sometimes if he's able to actually back you up, he'll land some decent combos up against the fence. And his takedowns, I mean, he doesn't really go for them these days, but that's because he's going up against high-level guys, especially high-level grapplers like a Roman Dolidze and a Brendan Allen, especially Brendan Allen, is a tricky customer for him stylistically. But even then, he was kind of going to war with him in the boxing, and I was surprised it was unanimous 30-27 from the judges. So ultimately, I do think I'm going to go with Vittori. By 29-28, I do think that Ferreira doesn't have enough tools. He has the spinning elbow, he has some good judo throws, he has an okay submission game, and he has that overhand, but it's just that's too simple. He doesn't. It's sometimes if he's getting desperate, he'll throw some hooks up against the fence, but it's like you're if you're worse than Marvin Vittori in the boxing, which I think you are, I can't trust you reliably to win that, especially when he has such a good chin. Fares Ziem and Nazim Sadikov. I'm going with Fares Ziem because he has the. It's a similar thing with Edson versus Jalen, except Fares doesn't have quite the power or the speed. But what Fares does have is better takedown defense than Jalen Turner. And Nazim Sadikov does not have the kicks that Edson Barboza does, where he could potentially fluke a spinning KO. As well as this, Nazim Sadikov kind of just steps into range with the boxing. He has really good boxing when he actually lets his hands go in close in the pocket. But when he actually has to close the gap, find the range to actually get in that pocket boxing range, it's usually the reason why he's looked kind of mid against guys like Nicholas Mota and Vyacheslav Boroshev. It's the problem. It's why he gets a draw against Vyacheslav, and it's why he almost gets KO'd in the first round against Nicholas Mota. It's because he kind of just steps into range with his like hooks, and he does have a decent kicking game. We saw against the much shorter Gabriel Bonfirm. I believe it was Gabriel. It might have been the other guy. It might have been Ismail Bonfirm. But either way, it was a question mark kick, and that was a beautiful kick. But either way, it's just not going to work against a much taller, longer, rangier guy, and especially against this guy who, you know, against Jalen Turner for Edson Barboza, it's at least only half an inch reach disadvantage. But for Nazim, it's like a 5-6 inch reach disadvantage. I'm not going to trust you in that regard to close the distance meaningfully. And on top of that, he just doesn't have the wrestling. I don't think we saw against Mike Davis, although he did have a knee injury, I believe, going into that. But either way, Mike Davis is a very solid wrestler. He was not able to actually take down Faraziam um, for very long, and Ferezian was actually reversing positions to get on top. So I do think that Ferezian has a clear path to victory there in a decision. And Macy Barber versus Corrine Silva. I'm going with Macy Barber. This is probably not much explanation needed. I think that she's going to be bigger, stronger. Maybe not bigger in sort of height reach, but in sort of girth. I do think that Corrine Silva is certainly the more meaningfully girth. That's like a MMA Che thing to say. But I do think that Karine Silva, she has used her attributes in that regard, and she might actually impose her will stronger there in the sort of physicality department. But I don't know. I really think that Macy Barber showing being able to just get past the technical striking that Amanda Ribas has shown before, and just sort of grit down and get the finish off of just the pressure. I think that she's shown against a higher level of composition or opposition to be able to impose that style more. So Karine Silva might actually surprise us here and be the more stronger of the two, as she's shown in the past against other opponents, but I don't think so. I think that Macy Barber is. I think this comes down to a physicality thing, and also I think that Macy Barber has shown that she can lose the early rounds, but then come back like she did against Amanda Ribas, and find the shots she needs to in the boxing, and then she can even work the takedowns, work the clinch. So I think this is going to be a pretty clear cut, maybe 30-27. I'll go with. And then Terrence McKinney, Chris Duncan. I'm going with Terrence McKinney. I think that Chris Duncan's too hittable early on. I think that Terrence McKinney does have, although he gasses after like one round of fighting. I think he does have the uppercut that he needs to find here, which Charlie Campbell found against Chris Duncan, which Vyacheslav Borshev found on Chris Duncan. I do think that the hooks are there, although Terrence McKinney likes to go for the straight shots a lot. He likes to go for the jab and the cross, which certainly isn't something that I would recommend to be the only thing he goes for. And also sometimes he likes to go for the knee. That could lead to him being taken down here. And Chris Duncan does have a really nice jiu-jitsu game. He was able to find the back and even find guillotines against what's the dude's name? Jordan Vucenic. And so I do think that the grappling is certainly something to be worried for here, unless he offensively goes for it and he's not able to fall off the top and actually find the back. If he's able to do that, because Terrence McKinney is super explosive in the first round with his back takes, with his takedowns, I do think that he could find the back and get a rear naked choke, maybe standing rear naked like he did against um, some other opponent. I believe it was Demir, the Bosnian guy. Had no, it wasn't him, but it was someone that he got the back, and I think it was a standing rear naked choke. Overall, I do believe that I do believe that Chris Duncan is maybe more technical overall, if you talk about his overall game, and he's able to last longer in the fight. But that's unless he gets KO'd in the first, and I do believe that he's gonna get KO'd in the first here because Terrence McKinney, one thing he has is power, he has athleticism, he has speed, and I do think that he's just a much better first round fighter. So I do think that's going to be too hard for Chris Duncan to get through in the first round. I'm going to go with first round submission actually. I know that's going to be kind of shocking, but I think to some it might be. But I think what Terrence McKinney has been trying to go for these days, especially like what he showed against Vyacheslav Borshev, is that he's able to actually take the back. He's going to his jiu-jitsu more, and he even shoots a double leg there in that fight, I believe. If my memory serves me right there, he almost immediately shoots there, and he's able to get the back and get the choke. I think that Chris Duncan, wait, was it actually rear naked? I think it was mounted guillotine. Okay, yeah, I was a little off there, but Chris Duncan, I think that he's gonna get rocked in the first round, and unlike Charlie Campbell, who mostly just has the hands, who mostly just has the boxing, which is really good boxing, mind you, but I think that as opposed to Charlie Campbell, he's actually gonna follow you to the ground instead of just waiting for you to get back up and hit you with meaningful uppercuts or other shots, whatever they might be. I think that Terrence McKinney is actually one guy who might actually be able to capitalize on your drop, on you being rocked, and from there follow you to the ground. I think that he's been improving on his jiu-jitsu and his overall grappling. Chris Grant Dawson and Manuel Torres. I'm going with Manuel Torres, which might be a shock to some. I think he's a really solid underdog, and I'll go with a second round KO, I guess, but I think he could get it done in the first. No, I'm gonna go with the first because even though it might be a more measured approach than a than what's the kid's name? Than Bobby Green, or when Manuel Torres ran into I keep calling Bobby Green a kid. No disrespect, but I keep calling him a kid. I'm like Dana White. What's the kid's name? What's the kid's name? Oh yeah. Um no, against Ignacio Bahamondes, Manuel Torres was blitzing him. I think he's going to be more patient there. It's basically anyone who's same height or shorter than Manuel Torres. He isn't going to actually just blitz in like that. It's only when he's facing up against someone who's an even bigger weight bully than him can he find these sort of lose his technicality, I guess, and then just resort to the blitzes where he can't really manage distance too well otherwise. Um, Grant Dawson, he has really good takedowns, but what Manuel Torres, and that's the only thing that's worrying here. It's like Manuel Torres, he hasn't really gone up against anyone who has shown his takedown defense. But Grant Dawson on the feet, he looked terrible against who we know isn't all that now, Diego Ferreira. We know that he's not all that good on the feet, and especially in the boxing, he relies a lot on his kicks to actually set up his boxing. He likes those teep kicks. He likes to throw those body kicks. Sometimes he'll throw some leg kicks, Diego Ferreira, and then he'll go to the hooks and sometimes 1-2s. He has a solid cross, but otherwise he's not all that. And I think that he's also especially not that athletic. We saw that Diego Ferreira was getting just athleticism mocked by the great ape Alexander Hernandez. The Great Ape, that's such a funny nickname. But we saw that against Alexander Hernandez that he's not really an athletic guy, was Diego Ferreira, and so for him to actually honestly win the exchanges on the feet for the most part against Grant Dawson, it really showed me that yeah, Grant Dawson, he doesn't have that in the on the feet. He doesn't really have all that. The straight punches which Manuel Torres goes to, especially so, are what catches Grant Dawson, like what Bobby Green did. It was I believe it was a beautiful counter cross, and I think that Manuel Torres, he's going to be able to counter these sloppy punches in bunches that Grant Dawson loves to throw against Diego Ferreira to set up the takedowns. And I do think that Manuel Torres has the pure athleticism. Now he hasn't really shown, like I said, takedown abilities, takedown defense abilities. But I'm just gonna have to trust, even though he hasn't shown against like a high level grappler, I'm gonna have to trust that his athleticism and his reach and his distance management is gonna be enough here. Like how he was able to so easily put out Drew Dober, and not many people have done that. So I truly believe that he's getting better with his distance management. He's younger, he's sharper, he's faster, and I do think that the straight punches are what's going to get to Grant Dawson. So I'm going to say probably a 1-2 down the pipe, maybe the cross, similar to not Grant Dawson, Drew Dober takedown. Knockdown, bro. What? I think it's going to be similar to the Drew Dober KO. Jan Blachowicz versus Bogdan Gushkov. I'm going with Jan Blachowicz. I think that he's going to be much more technical on the feet. Sometimes it's worrying when he blitzes forward, but the only time that he's really done it stupid, like really carelessly, was against and very lacking in defense. The only time that he's actually blitzed forward with a lacking defense was against Thiago Santos, and that was ages ago. Otherwise, he's whenever he blitzes forward, he only goes in with a couple punches. He doesn't really go in too far unless he knows that his opponent's going to cover up. And otherwise, he covers up really well. He finds the moments in between. Um, he finds the moments in between your shots and even in between your sort of pocket boxing like he did against Dominic Reyes, where he literally found a beautiful hook right in between. I think it was a lead left hook, right in between the guard of Dominic Reyes as he was trying to find the shot in between the pocket boxing as well. So I do believe that Jan Blachowicz, he has really good eyes. He sees these shots coming, and he's just a very defensively aware guy. He has really thudding leg kicks that people don't really talk about these days, but he has really thudding leg kicks. He's gonna destabilize the calves of Bogdan Guskov and even the upper leg. I don't know, I forget like the thigh, I guess. The the body kicks are there as well. You saw against Dominic Reyes. It literally left a red imprint of the footprint on Dominic Reyes's like left side, I believe it was. He has those nasty body kicks that he goes to. It's just against his opponents that he's been going up against lately, and unfortunately, he's going up against like the best strikers of the division who have all these attributes that leave it hard for Jan Blachowicz to land clean on. And even then, you could argue that he's at the very least not lost to any of these guys that he's lost against recently. Um, you have what's the guy's name? Hang on, let me just Alex Pereira. Yeah, wait, I thought it. Okay, yeah, I'm getting my timeline mixed up. I thought that Magomed actually what he fought after Pereira for some reason. Yeah, I mean, you could argue that he won against Pereira and Alberg, and you could also argue that he drew against Magomed, which I believe he drew against Magomed. I'm kind of 50-50 about the Alex Pereira one. I go back and forth on that. Ultimately, I say Pereira probably still won that, just based on slight damage output in the third. And I do believe that the Reyes one was a complete robbery. I scored all rounds to Jan. You could argue 29-28, but I thought that was a complete robbery. All those tapping leg kicks does nothing. But my point stands here that he's going up against these like guys with attributes. Alex Pereira, nasty power, um, honestly decently hard to take down, and Alex Pereira has nasty leg kicks. He's an insane kickboxer. Same thing with Carlos Holberg, nasty kickboxer. He has amazing footwork. He's hard to catch with any meaningful shots. And then Magomed Ankalaev has that speed. He has decent boxing of his own, and he has really good takedowns. So ultimately, I think that Jan Blachowicz, he doesn't have to go up against any of those threats. And the boxing, I think he's way better than Bogdan Guskov. Defensively, Bogdan Guskov lowers his hands. I think that's going to be really tough for him against Jan Blachowicz. I think this is going to be a domination, except maybe early on he catches Jan Blachowicz with a few uppercuts, which Bogdan's really good with. But I think his defense is terrible. His head movement isn't all that, and he doesn't bring his hands up really. Bogdan Gushkov does have a solid cross, a really good uppercut, and he does have an okay jab, but otherwise, I don't really think he has all that for Jan. I don't think he has that much what it takes. Henry Cejudo, Peyton Talbot. I'm going with Peyton Talbot. I do think that Henry Cejudo is way past his prime. I'm going with decision, honestly, but I think that Henry Cejudo does have some paths to victory here. I think that he can mix in the takedowns with the straight shots. He also has an okay overhand, but for the most part, he relies on the jab and the 1-2, sometimes 1-2-3. But he does have an okay leg kick. I'll give him that actually. But his body locks aren't going to be there because Payne Talbot, he's going to have the range and the height advantage. It's going to be all there, the height and the reach. It's too much for Henry Cejudo. His distance management isn't going to be all that. Payne Talbot is certainly going to have a little bit of a hard time in the first round because Henry Cejudo is explosive early on, especially in the first round. Payne Talbot, though, he isn't that fast, but he's super accurate when he throws. He doesn't feint too much, but what he is accurate, and he is especially accurate when his opponent, which it usually is shorter than him. And his opponent in Henry Cejudo here, he's going to be very open to the knees. I don't know if he wants to go for too much here because Henry Cejudo does have those solid takedowns, but I just don't think he has the strength considering that he's, especially because he was a former flyweight, and I don't think he's a very big bantamweight at all. Peyton Talbot's certainly a big bantamweight, so I don't think he's going to have the strength to hold Peyton Talbot down. Maybe technically wise he can, but strength wise, I think that Peyton Talbot can just shuck him off in moments. And even in the pure grappling, in the technicality, I do like the scrambles from Peyton Talbot he showed in his comeback win against Felipe Lima. He showed really good scrambles, the way he was able to turtle, the way he was able to actually reverse and end up on top in moments. He and he was dealing with a chain wrestler in certain moments as well. Like he showed really good balance when he was getting taken almost taken down with a single leg. I do think that certain moments like that, Henry Cejudo is going to go for it and realize this guy's a brick wall in the takedown defense. Just going to have to try. I'm just going to have to try and blitz him with a straight right and hope for the best, straight right hand. And I don't think he's going to be able to land those meaningfully for the most part. So a decision for Peyton Talbot, 29-28, where maybe he loses the first round to some of those straight shots landing from Henry Cejudo, maybe one overhand or a couple, and then he lands some takedowns, getting a minute of control time. But Peyton Talbot then makes his way back up and shows in the second round I'm still going to be there. Payne Talbot has a really good uppercut as well in moments, but for the most part he goes to the knee, he goes to the straight shots. I mean, the uppercut can be straight, but for the most part, I think he's just gonna go with like the 1-2, 1-2-3, that type of stuff as well. He's gonna go for sometimes hooks up against the fence when he's hurt, when he has Henry hurt in moments. Tatsuro Taira, Brendan Moreno. I think that Brendan Moreno, honestly, people are underrating him here. Quite a few people. I'm surprised with these odds, honestly. I think that Brendan Moreno should be the slight favorite, but I'll take an underdog as Brendan Moreno. And I do think that Brendan Moreno, he is, even though, quite a bit older, I do think that it's not like, oh, that means that he's going to get chinned or that he has a bad chin because of all the wars he's been in, although he has been in a few. I think that it's shown his fight IQ throughout the years. I think it's shown that even though he's been at the top for so long, the fact that he's still here at 31 and 11 months, like that's crazy. Tatsuro Taira has only just gotten here. I do think that his strength is going to be there. He's certainly a bigger flyweight. However, he's felt that power, he's felt that strength, he's felt the back takes from Alejandro Pantoja. So I do think that even though Tatsuro Taira is about at the same level back taking wise as a Alessandro Pantoja, I do think that Tatsuro Taira doesn't have anything that Brendan Moreno hasn't dealt with Alejandro Pantoja. Multiple times over, he's fought Alejandro. So I think that Brendan Moreno is going to be able to defend against those back takes. He's going to be able to find reversals, able to turn away with the hips. I think that he's going to be able to reverse in not just the back takes with the body locks, the body triangles, but I also think that he's going to be able to turn away on these takedowns. And Tatsuro Taira, yes, some people are saying, oh, he only needs one. Does he really? I mean, maybe to secure a round if Brendan Moreno doesn't find the moments in between to actually defend and make his way back up to the feet, and then reverse and get back to the boxing. But I do think that it's gonna take more than that. I don't think he's gonna be able to get submitted here. Brandon Moreno's not just takedown defense, but submission defense is impeccable. The way he's able to fight the hands, and I think he's much more fast on the feet. Tatsuro Taira, he's shown really good at boxing against who? Against the Park guy who got absolutely obliterated by Bruno Silva. Like it's not that impressive, honestly. And he's getting these KOs against these much shorter, much less quick twitch guys who don't really set up their shots that well. And Brandon Moreno, he's not gonna give up the legs. He does sometimes he goes to the body kicks, which can lead to him getting taken down here. But I don't think he goes for it much if he doesn't feel that he needs to. If he's going up against a takedown artist, like he doesn't really. I've never really seen him go for it against guys with good grappling, like a Alejandro Pantoja is a great example. I've not really seen that. Like even against Amir Albazi, he went to the body kick a few times, but for the most part, he was landing the boxing. He was faking the kicks and then going upstairs with the hooks around the guard, stuff like that. And his straight shots are amazing too. His shot selection there, if he needs to, if he feels like his opponent's got the attributes with the height and the reach, he does actually go to the overhands, and he landed those beautifully against Steve Erceg. Even though I felt like he lost that fight, that's neither here nor there. Either way, he landed those overhands beautifully there. And it could drop Tetsudo Ortega because he doesn't have the best chin. I mean, he was getting rocked around by jab and flimsy 1-2 from Brandon Royval. So I do think that Brandon Moreno can get that 29-28. Joshua Van, I'm also going with a decision. 48-47, maybe 49-46, but I'll go with 48-47. I could even see a late KO. I could, honestly. Alejandro Pantoja, I do think that he's really good. I think his blitzes are very hard to catch. I do think that his body kicks are really good. His leg kicks are really good. The way he's sometimes like he does against like he did he replicates Alexander Volkanovski in this regard. It shares some similarities where he'll sort of go forward with the boxing and then finish the combination with the leg kicks. That's something that I really like from Alejandro Pantoja. And then sometimes he'll lead with the leg kick and then go into to it with the takedown. Sometimes he'll throw in a flying knee. Sometimes he'll get a little wild with it. But his pure boxing isn't all that. I don't really like that. How wild he gets. I think that Joshua Van is one of the best counter boxers we've ever seen in the UFC, especially in the lower weight classes. You could argue he shows shades of JDM. Not in the grappling though. He's shown better takedown defense already. We've seen that against a really good grappler in a what's the dude's name? I have to check. Is it this? No, it's not Cody Durden. Ray Through, yeah, that's right. He was showing really good takedown defense against him, even against Joshua. I mean, not Joshua Van. He is Joshua Van. Um, what's the guy's name? Cody Durden. I just went on his profile there. Yeah, against Cody Durden, he was constantly trying to take down Joshua Van, and he just couldn't. He's absolutely dominating these guys that keep trying to shoot on him. And Joshua Van, the way he fights, the way he throws the body shots, the hooks to the body, sometimes even uppercuts to the body, I think that's really going to hurt the gas tank of Alejandro Pantoja, who we're starting to see a lot of these MMA YouTubers are starting to realize that, hey, when we actually rewatch film, we realize that Alejandro Pantoja, he doesn't have this crazy gas tank like we think. It's just that these guys aren't able to capitalize because they're either stuck on the ground or they just don't have the power or counter ability. And Joshua Van doesn't quite have the power either, but what he does have is he does have the forward pressure. He does have the best counters of anyone that Alejandro Pantoja has fought. Some would argue Steve Erceg. I don't quite agree. If he was that good of a counterpuncher, he'd be able to find the shots within the overhands that Brandon Moreno was throwing. So with that being said, I do think that Joshua Van has the youth, the speed. The takedowns are certainly worrying early on, but I do think that he's shown the even the we haven't seen enough of the back take defense, but we've seen a decent, solid back take defense from Joshua Van. I would like to see a little more. I'd like to see how he handles if he's getting put into a body triangle or if he's having to fight the hands on that position. But overall, he has shown enough to defend the body lock, the body triangle. And on top of all that, I do think that in between those moments where he is getting taken down, let's say that he does in round one, in round two, he's losing those rounds. Alejandro Pantoja is going to be fighting life and death to try and get back to those positions because it's going to be night and day on the feet. He's going to be blitzing into these counter lead hooks from Joshua Van, like the left hook that he landed beautifully to drop Bruno Silva when Bruno Silva just threw a sloppy uppercut with no setup. It was just completely telegraphed. And I think that Joshua Van, he's going to be able to see these moments, which are very similar to Alejandro Pantoja. I mean, even these guys like Bruno Silva is a better striker than Alejandro Pantoja. He just doesn't have the chin or the attributes, the straight up girth. Another MMA Che-ism. MMA Che, the GOAT. I mean, he is the GOAT at analysis, but I think he's wrong here. I think he's wrong with this fight. 48-47. And Merab Dvalishvili versus Piotr Yan. I'm going with Merab probably by a 50-45. I could see a submission here, honestly. I could see even a late TKO where Piotr Yan's just gassing for air. But I just think that aside from that, the straight punches from Piotr Yan, the cross, the right cross specifically, he lands beautifully, like he did against Marcus McGee. Sometimes hook around the guard he'll land. Sometimes he'll land those beautiful elbows like he did against Uriah Faber. He's a very technical boxing slash Muay Thai guy. He's super technical, Petr Yan. And honestly, I'm rooting for him as well. I mean, I'm rooting for both these guys. Merab really maybe a little bit more I'm rooting for because, you know, he's got that impressive win streak above all these other guys. Even I mean, he's competing with Islam Makhachev and Hamzat Chimaev with these long win streaks as a dominant champion, and he especially not just Hamza Chimaev, but Islam Makhachev. I mean, Islam's the one that he's competing with to get to beat Anderson Silva's record for most wins in UFC consecutive. I mean, let's see, like Islam Makhachev is tied right now, but Merab really is just one or two wins away as well. So I mean, that greatness can't be disputed, and that's why I will really want to see him continue in this legacy and even beat Umar afterwards. Because it was so fun the first time to see him beat Umar when he was counted out, and I'd love to see it again. But Pyotr Yan, honestly, like you know, he's a Russian Chad Orthodox, similar to Merab in that regard, but he's also a really cool guy. He's a very fun fighter, personality and style, all that. But I just got to be honest, Merab really, I don't see him getting beat here the way he's constantly shooting takedowns. Peter Yan, we know this. We've seen it 100 times be talked about. The high guard is a nightmare against a takedown heavy style, which Merab really is constantly shooting. Literally 49 takedown attempts in his last fight against Peter Yan. I mean, that's just insane. Like, how are you gonna defend all those takedowns? Which Peter Yan was actually doing okay in their first fight, but Merab has gotten better. We saw that against Corey Sandhagen. He was doing beautifully trying to get back up, but it didn't matter. He just kept shooting. He just not just shooting, but he his body lock was impossible to defend against. Corey was fighting the hands constantly, and it just didn't matter because Merab just kept holding his the hips. He just kept holding on somehow. He just kept going for it. And then Merab Dvalishvili's boxing is even getting better. He's slipping these 1-2s, these moments where Corey Sandhagen is pressuring him up against the fence. Merab really comes back with the overhand, and then he rocks Corey Sandhagen, and then he almost finishes him. He almost KO'd him. And Corey Sandhagen, yeah, he mixes in the punches with the head kicks. He shows the 1-2, and then he follows with the head kick. Sometimes he'll mix in with the leg kick. Like Corey Sandhagen is a beautiful striker as well, very technical, long rangey, but Petr Yan doesn't have those attributes. He's about the same height and reach. Even Merab really has a slightly longer reach, and even the leg kicks were there for Merab Dvalishvili in the first fight, which people are just talking about the infinite takedowns that Merab's going to shoot here. No, he actually Merab has a solid cross of his own. The jab isn't really all that, but he kind of just uses it as a distance tool to set up his backhand, his overhand, or the cross. Petr Yan, he also has a really good cross of his own that he's, like I said, he used against Marcus McGee to a strong effect. Against Merab Dvalishvili, though, on the other hand, his cross was landing, but it didn't matter because Merab just has a really good chin. And there's certain moments where he can certainly rock Merab Dvalishvili, especially since if we're supposed to take him at his word, he did break his hand or it was broken going into the fight. Either way, if we're supposed to believe that, okay, sure, maybe he'll actually rock Merab Dvalishvili in certain moments, but overall, he's going to do more in the rounds. Overall, you just have to say that even if Petr Yan lands those straight punches that straight down the pipe, rock Merab Dvalishvili, give him cuts, break his nose, stuff like that. Even if he causes the visual damage, you just have to rely on Merab Dvalishvili as the more heavy pace, forward going fighter who's going to hurt the calf of Petr Yan, who's going to actually overwhelm Petr Yan when it gets close to the fence and he actually lands those elbows in tight when Petr Yan folds to the pressure and goes back to the high guard when even though he sometimes puts the long guard when he gets backed up to the fence he resorts back to the same thing. When Rob Demonis really lands elbows of his own, he's not going to really have the moments Petr Yan, he's not going to have these sort of sequences where he's able to get off these moments where he's cutting Merab Dvalishvili, where he's hurting him to the body. Even the body kick, I don't think it's going to be there because Merab Dvalishvili, he's been sweeping at them like he did against Sean O'Malley, like he did against Umar Nurmagomedov. He's showing better teep defense, he's showing better defense all around. And I think that he's even getting better with the submission, so I realistically can see a submission. I think that's the second most likely. I don't think he'll get a KO necessarily. Maybe if he just doesn't respect Petr Yan on the feet, but I do think that a decision is most likely. It's possible that, like I said, Petr Yan, he lands the straight shots, he lands the elbows on the guard, and even on the nose, the bridge of the nose for Merab. I do think that he could get like a 49, 48-47, where he wins on visual damage. But that's like super unrealistic here. You have to go with Merab here. You have to say that even if those moments happen, Merab is just going to shoot more. He's going to throw more, and the judges are just going to see that more, and they're going to see, okay, he's actually doing stuff. He's staying busy. Even though Peter Yan's landing the more significant shots, it's too few and far in between, similar to the first fight against Sean O'Malley that Merab had. And I do think that he's going to land enough strikes to make it at least a 48-47. I think it's going to be a 49-46. It could be a 50-45 like it was in the first fight, but almost all rematches are different in some regards, so I do think he's going to get a 49-46, where Petr does have a little more success. Anyway, that's my full card predictions for UFC 323. Thank you so much for watching. Mask of MMA out.